you have a hand in forming, the next version of what this organization is going to look like and what our technology platforms are going to look like. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're not going to just, deal with whatever leadership doles out. This is yours to make. And I feel like that's what motivates people. That's what inspires people to say, I'm giving you a chance to contribute here to what this future looks like. And you're here to think and contribute and be creative and put yourself into what this place is going to become, not just do what I tell you to do. So.
Right, exactly. And so you mentioned transformation in IT, which I find fascinating because like you mentioned, it's IT and transformation are not normally words that get put together, mm-hmm. but I think with the right goals and the right leadership, anything is possible. When you talk about that, I mean, obviously the word innovation comes up inside that. How do you coach the team towards innovative thoughts and approaches while they still do have to keep the lights on? How do you maintain that balance?
Yeah, that's great. I'll tell you one practical way and also another set of expectations. One practical way to do it is simply just kind of throw it out there and saying, we're gonna innovate now and set up some time for that. So we this is not unique to CHS. Lots of companies do this. They call it lots of different things. We set up an innovation event where we set aside time. It was actually 40 hours in a given month to work on a project of your choosing. And there's a whole ideation phase. There's a whole kind of self-directed team formation phase. And at the end, the teams got to present, what they created through this. And it was highly supported by the business, highly supported by the IT leadership, but totally individual team-led initiatives. And we just got to kind of, watch and see. And what came out of this was really fun. There's an inspirational aspect to that to say, wow, look what we can do. This is neat. In 40 hours, boom, we can make something that's real. And, that's, kind of gives people that sense of, we can. We don't just have to keep the lights on. So there's that's really tangible and practical. And I would encourage every IT department to do something like that, because sometimes you just need to show people how that is possible, right? Mm-hmm. But then there comes the other side. It's like, well, I really expect you guys to do this every day, right? So how do you continue? How do we make this not an event but a lifestyle of how we work, how we think mm-hmm. about challenges, and how we approach everything? That's harder.
Yeah,
but you got to start somewhere, and it helps to have some catalysts within the group that tend to be more naturally wired that way to challenge norms and be inventive in their approaches. I always, I love best practices. Best practices are amazing, but to a degree, and by definition, a best practice solves yesterday's problems.
Yes.
Who's going to write the best practice for tomorrow?
That's great.
Why not us?
Right. Exactly. And I like to ask a lot of people because, again, working in software, people like to talk about things like Agile and different frameworks and all these things as solutions versus first focusing on building a strong team and then figuring out what works best for them. Because I coach leaders all the time on, waterfall does have its benefits in certain contexts. How is your team working best? And if you're talking about things like transformation and agile and how people start to integrate these types of frameworks into how they're working, I think it's really to turn the boat, you got to get those quick wins. And I think agile frameworks and those types of things help with that. But again, there's other ways of approaching it. In your experience, I mean, has there been frameworks or methodologies or best practices that you've found that truly have done the job, or has it always been a kind of a mishmash on how the company works and how the team works?
You bet. All the above. Yes. I will absolutely say we've had success with both frameworks and kind of find our own blend. Agile has been very, very, very useful for us, in particular, for us to kind of get to more of a quick time to value on the development side. And I will say, even beyond that, we've been really looking at DevOps as kind of the last mile of that journey. Agile might give you kind of compiled code,
Right.
but how do you actually have a full running life cycle of a system? And then you need DevOps to kind of complete the chain. So that's been our kind of current focus. But DevOps is one of those things that's hard to define. But it's people tend to think of it as tool chains.
Yeah,
I tend to think of it as development and operations working better together. Mm-hmm. And we've done some organizational changes to even make that easier. I've co-located ops and dev folks on the same teams and given some full lifecycle accountability to groups of people to figure out and bring their respective skills to the challenge. And we've seen some great things from that. So it's not all about the tools. It's also about just like you said, being empathetic, working closer together. We've done things with bullpens and war rooms and lots of different things. It's not necessarily one size fits all, but we have these tools in the toolbox. We want to make them available to people. We want teams to use the tools that make sense for them and not be overly prescriptive from a leadership standpoint on how exactly a team operates, but support them in kind of how they want to operate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, like you said, I think sometimes those frameworks and those tools and those types of discussions, especially come up with people when they are talking about where they used to be at and how they used to do things. It becomes a common discussion with, the way that DevOps and Agile and all these different frameworks and approaches have affected IT. What else do you feel like in the IT sphere has been affected the most in recent years? What's really been some of the things that you've had to really step up and fight either for or against in order to keep your team on the cutting edge of IT?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly as a leader, that's my responsibility. But just personally, I'm kind of a futurist. No one needs to tell me to kind of, play crystal ball and future predictor. I like to do that anyway. So my head kind of always is going towards, what are things going to look like 5-10 years from now?
Right.
And how do we kind of, get there? There's a balance to it all. Here's the tension. So, you have, fundamental things like running your ERP systems, running your data centers. You have to do well at. You can't just, you might think, well, I'm going to be the Uber of this industry tomorrow. That's sometimes kind of silly to think in those terms. You're grounded in reality. You have to kind of get from where you are to someplace else and what makes sense for your industry. So there's kind of the operational efficiencies, the excellent stuff that we as IT, we need to continue to get better, faster, cheaper at. However, in the same breath, I'm not trying to be Walmart here. I'm not just trying to be the utility cheap player to the business.
Right.
Okay, we want to move up the value chain, of course. So how do you do that? And it all comes down to digital business, which is a term that is certainly used plenty and loosely defined, but it is how do we? I think it's all about how you move, how IT and technology in general, not even IT, just how does we use technology, period, to transform the way we go to market in the business. And it's, I would say, a particularly unique challenge where I'm at today with CHS. We're an agricultural company. We move grain around the world, and it's talk about one of the more mature industries is agriculture, right? It's been around forever.
Absolutely.
So literally, we've it's something that's kind of pretty traditional. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited about it. Here's why. You think about the disruptions we've seen in financial services, in retail, in so many other kind of verticals. It hasn't really happened yet all that much in agricultural, manufacturing, some logistical things from a kind of a large scale standpoint, right? So it feels to me like an opportunity. So because we're still on kind of this side of the curve. I encourage my team to be thinking about, and we all strategically think about, how do we play a role in that. Mm-hmm. So we look at a lot of the technologies and things that are happening, and IoT and all that kind of stuff, to say what's in it for our business, and how can we use technology to change the game. So that's inspiring. That's fun. It's exciting. You have to do both. You can't do one and not the other. You can't ignore the operations of what kind of keeps us relevant and making money today. But you need to continue to, I'd say, just add to the value equation of the overall business. Yeah. And I'll tell you this: I'm thrilled to be working at CHS because upper leadership, not talking about IT, but in the business, they get it. They get it. They understand. And everybody in IT wants to work in a company where the business people in the company get it and know the possibilities. So it's fun to be in that mix of circumstances.
Sure. No, and obviously that's knowing that you have that support really goes a long way. But let's say maybe there's an IT leader out there that maybe feels stuck, that feels that they're not getting the traction, and maybe it's not the team. Maybe it is leadership. Maybe it is their team. It could be a number of factors. If you were talking with another IT leader that says, I just feel stuck. I can't move the team forward. I can't. I'm stuck in red tape and bureaucracy and those types of things. It's probably best that I just hit the eject button or something. I mean, what sort of advice would you give that person? Like step one, what would be probably the best way to just start unhinging things?
Yeah, well, I've been there. And I'm very sympathetic to that exact situation. Just case in point, how would you like to be working for a company that is in the mortgage industry in 2007?
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, so that was my case. And I'll tell you this: we had an awesome IT group. We were like years ahead of the industry, other enterprise industries. We had a fantastic, high performing team. Really cutting edge technology. Things were clicking. We liked working with each other, all that kind of stuff. But guess what? We were just in the wrong business at definitely the wrong time. And it all fell apart, right? So, as much as, you have to find the right mix, assuming you're not working for a tech company, you're working for some business that does something other than technology as its primary focus. Yeah. Being close to business, understanding how the business makes money, understanding what the risks are associated with that, is certainly something I would encourage anyone in IT to always get a better understanding of, because it's I'll tell you, it's no fun working in an awesome IT organization in a failing business. Yeah. So it is time to pull the eject cord for sure. But in that situation, well, that's not always the case. You can also be working in a company where from a career standpoint, just purely from a career standpoint, you feel like you've had some growth. Maybe you've been able to develop to a certain point, but you've kind of hit your ceiling. And maybe it's the size of the organization, or maybe it's the culture of the organization, but you're simply just not going to advance. And it takes, a lot of consideration to kind of come to that conclusion. But if you come to that conclusion, it's okay. It's not an urgent need, but you just have to think, what? I've kind of accepted the fact that, my next step will probably be outside, and that's okay.
Right.
And I've been in that situation as well. So it's growth is important. Understand you have the support of the organization is important, but if you live and work in the Twin Cities, we got a lot of opportunity here. Yeah. It's great, and we have a fantastic, vibrant industry. So it's
the same
way.
No
one should feel stuck.
No, it's the same way all over the country. I mean, it's a great time to be working in software and design and development. There's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of companies that are, like you said, like large organizations that are understanding that they need to do more change and they need to spend more time on it. And, one of the, and what I appreciate about your perspective, Zach, is that you've also got a sense of humor about it. One of the other posts that I really like of yours is where you talk about nuking it from orbit, which, of course, Alien's one of my favorite movies. But I've used that term in project and product development over the years quite a bit. Maybe it's time to just nuke this from orbit. Yes. I find that, getting that, I mean, my father was a minister, so I live in metaphors and analogies, and I really appreciate that kind of perspective. But how do you make that decision?